Hi.
Senator Warren.
Hi, what's your name?
Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hi. In addition to those structural changes, we need some institutional changes as well. The first will happen when you're elected.
Thank you. Yes, that is going to be kind of a little bit seismic, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's assume, though, that the Republicans don't change and they retain their majority in the Senate.
No.
Yeah, I know. So what are you going to do to bring them and the Democrats together, to work together to implement your program?
Okay, so it's a good question. I do want to say, though, right from the beginning, I am not conceding that the Republicans are going to stay in charge of the Senate. Hello, Iowa! We need to take back the Senate, okay? Very, very important, and I'm going to keep fighting for that. And actually, I think fighting a campaign like this is exactly the way to make that happen. The kind of grassroots, the kind of energy we get behind these ideas. But I'll go with your idea. What happens if we do end up with the Republicans in charge, look, of the Senate? Here's how I see this. I see this as we think about what power we have. What are the tools we've got? The first one, and I love thinking about it this way, is what can a president do all by herself? Yes. And the answer is, it actually turns out there's a lot. So, and I'm looking at all of it, right? No, but this is important because it matters who your president is. And I'll just give you a couple of very quick examples. You know this whole thing, you may have heard of it, called equal pay for equal work. Yes, and you've seen how well that's worked out so far, right? Right? That we are not supposed to discriminate as a country on the basis of race. We're not supposed to discriminate on the basis of gender. We're not supposed to discriminate, I believe, on the basis of gender identification, right? All of this. So what can you do? What can you do as president? I'll tell you what you can do. 1 in every 4 people in America works for a company that has federal contracts. And the president and her administration determine the rules for who gets to bid on federal contracts. How about we say, if you want to bid on a federal contract, you got to be willing to put your hiring and salary data out there where it's public, and you've got to be showing that you're not just talking the talk about equal pay and equal opportunity, you're walking the walk. Something we could do, right? I'll give you another one you can do as president all by yourself. You could have a Secretary of Education who believes in education. I will appoint a Secretary of Education who has been a public school teacher. Betsy DeVos need not apply. But I say that by way of saying, in so many parts of government, whether it's the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Environmental Protection Agency, there is enormous power in those agencies. We got the right people at the head of those agencies, people who believe in the mission and who are willing to get out there and fight for it. There's still a lot of change we can make. So that's part of it. Let me give you the other half, and that is Congress. Okay, are we just going to be in America that says, nope, sorry, Republicans stayed in charge, so we're done? Right? Not me, man. Because here's how I see this. What we will have is a president who's willing to lead from the White House, and a grassroots movement that we have built all across this country. A grassroots movement where we say together that we're going to line up our issues. We can't do them all at the same time, right? This is not that Three Stooges routine where everybody tries to go through the door at once. You're going to have to line them up in terms of what we're going to get out there and fight for around health care and student loans and immigration reform and gun safety. Going to line them up. Your fight is my fight. Your fight is my fight. My fight is your fight. We got to be together in this. But here's the deal. Between us, we can hold this Congress accountable. And how do I know that? I remember what happened back in 2017 when the House of Representatives voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Do you remember that? Totally voted to repeal it, and then high-fived each other and broke out the brewskis. I mean, what kind of people high-five each other over, we just took away health care from millions of Americans? But that's what they did. Came over to the House, and they had a Republican majority. Had a pretty good-sized Republican, I mean, enough, right, to do it, and yet people across this country, there was no leadership from the White House on this one, but people across this country made their voices heard. We pushed, we screamed, we showed up in the hallways. People who use wheelchairs showed up and got themselves arrested in Republican senators' offices. Mamas pushing little carriages with babies that have complex medical needs, dragging along oxygen tanks and special feeding equipment, got right in there and got right in the faces of those Republican senators. And at the end of the day, they blinked. And we saved health care for tens of millions of Americans. We did that. I am in this race because I believe in what we can do together. I still believe, I believe more than ever in the power of democracy. I believe that with a leader in the White House and a grassroots movement on the ground, that we can hold our government accountable, that we can make it stop working just for the wealthy and the well-connected, and we can make it work for all of us. We can do this. We can do it. You bet. That's a great question, Greg. Thank you. Okay, hi.
Hi, Senator.
Hi, what's your name?
Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte.
So the United States, I think, is one of maybe 3 nations in the world left that hand down life sentences without the possibility of parole to people under 18.
Yep.
Which is changing on the statewide level, but I was wondering if you support policy that would remove that sentence for juveniles on the nationwide level. And I know you care about criminal justice reform, so how does that look different for adults and juveniles in the system?
So the answer is yes. I do support it. Can I just do a little bigger, let's do a little bit bigger riff if we can on criminal justice reform overall. It's about juveniles, it's about every part of it though. And here's where I want to start. We talk about criminal justice reform. Start with the numbers. Studies all across this country. You know what these studies confirm? Everyone talks about how many people are locked up, but I want you to look at it this way. Study after study after study after study in America shows that for exactly the same crimes, African Americans are more likely than whites to be arrested, more likely to be detained, more likely to be taken to trial, more likely to be wrongfully convicted, and more likely to receive harsher sentences. Race lies right at the center of our so-called criminal justice system. And until we acknowledge that, we cannot make this system better. We just a lot of plans on criminal justice, but the way I think of it from the top is we got to spend less money locking people up and more money lifting people up. We got to do this from the front to the back. So here's just some examples of it as you think through the system. What we make illegal. It is believed that blacks, whites, and Latinx smoke marijuana at about the same rates. Only African Americans are about 4 times more likely to be arrested for smoking marijuana than whites are. You know one way you can fix that? How about we just make smoking marijuana legal? That works. Yeah, somebody back there is saying, cool, man. So part of it is we need to look at all of our stats, not just the small parts. We need to look all the way across at what's going on. We need to think about policing all across this country. And think about the federal tools on policing. A Department of Justice that actually enforces our civil rights laws. Yeah. Best practices on policing. We need to think about the trial system itself. Right now, public defenders are paid so little and buried under an avalanche of cases. They can't deliver justice, not because they're not trying, because it is physically impossible for them to make it through their cases. We need to invest in our court system and in justice in our court system. Yep. And our prison system, I'm just picking up bits and pieces. We need to end private prisons. No one should make a profit locking people up. Yep. And just one more. When people leave prison, they need to have opportunities to make it back in, to their families, to their communities. Banning people from housing, from driver's licenses, from their barbering license, that just keeps people on the outside. We've already broken those lives and not giving people a chance to come back in. Our criminal justice system is a system that is not designed to help rehabilitate people. It's just a system designed to lock more and more people away. And it is time to make real change, big structural change.
Hi, Senator.
Hi. Tell me your name.
Isaiah.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
Good to see
So,
you, Isaiah.
Senator, you have a ton of amazing plans for the working people of the United States, but the Office of President also has an amazing responsibility to people outside of the United States, given the power of the position. And right now, the United States is bombing at least 7 countries. We support genocides in Palestine and in Yemen. The US military is actually the biggest polluter of any organization in the world. And we also work in more clandestine ways. Columbia economist Jeffrey Sachs reported that between 2017 and 2018, United States sanctions on Venezuela caused over 40,000 deaths. And we also have sanctions on many other countries like Iran, North Korea, and you can name many more. So I'm wondering, as president, will you stop US-supported murder, whether it's through sanctions, arms support, or boots on the ground?
So I like your frame on this. Here's how I see this. We want to be a great nation, lead the world, then we need to live our values every single day. And that means we don't support, for example, what's going on in Yemen, the worst man-made humanitarian crisis in generations. And yet, we continue to support the Saudis as this war goes on and on and on. Children die, people die by the thousands, by the tens of thousands in this country. We need to say no. We need to be willing to back up. We need to bring our combat troops home. A great nation does not fight endless wars. We should not be in combat in Afghanistan. We should not be in combat in the Middle East. This is not where we should be. But I think of it this way, that let's just make this a bigger question about foreign policy overall. What do you think about as the tools a president has available in foreign policy? We have military. We have a great military. We have people who have signed up to make the ultimate sacrifice, their families sacrifice for them to be there. They are people who will do whatever we ask them to do. But we should not ask our military to solve non-military problems. They can't do it. And the example of that is Afghanistan. I was in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and we were then in our 16th year of war in Afghanistan. And where were we? I talked to Afghan leaders, I talked to Afghan military, I talked to our own military, I talked to people on the ground, and I said, tell me what winning is. And nobody could come up with an answer. But you start digging into it a little bit, and the answer is the Afghan government controls less than 60% of the landmass in Afghanistan after 16 years of our being there and losing our own people and losing so many Afghans in it. The poppy trade, heroin trade, is bigger than ever. The border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, so that the poppy trade can go back and forth, so that terrorists can go back and forth. We're not moving in a direction of winning. So we have to think of this, I believe, in terms of all of the tools in the toolbox. And here's a big part of it. We need to think about our diplomatic tools. We need a State Department that's fully staffed, that has diplomats, has people on the ground who understand the language, the economy, the local politics. We need to use our economic tools. For example, we got a problem at the border, at our southern border, made by Donald Trump, made so much worse because he withdrew help for Central America and helped destabilize those countries. We use money to help stabilize the governments in those countries so the gangs can't take over. That helps them and helps relieve the problem at the border. But here's the thing. You really want to be a great nation. I go back to the point about you got to live your values every day. And no great nation takes children away from their parents. That's not who we are. No great nation cuts and runs on our allies, the Kurds, who stood and fought with us against terrorism. We want to be a great nation. We got to know the difference between dictators and stop sucking up to dictators and our allies. We should be friendlier to Canada than we are to North Korea. But for me, that's the heart of it. We've got to be a country that's willing to get out there and recognize the worth and dignity of every human being, to work with our allies to try to make this a safer world. Yeah, we face problems on terrorism. We need to figure out with our allies how to contain it. But we need to use all of our tools to do that. Economic support, and most of all, if it really stinks, if it really looks bad, like the war in Yemen, like taking away kids at the border, then the United States of America should not do it. There it is. So I tell you what, we'll wrap this up. I want to talk to you for just 1 second, and it's a little bit off the question I got earlier about getting things done, because I want to tell you a story about a toaster. Back when I was a young mother, toasters could actually catch houses on fire. You know the toaster ovens, you know the things with the pull-out trays, they didn't have shut-off switches. And so the consequence was you could put 4 pieces of bread in one of those things, hear the baby cry, run off to the other room, get a little tied up longer than you thought you were, and when you came back, literally, the bread would be in flames that would be leaping up several inches. Ask me how I know. In fact, my father, one year for Christmas, gave me a fire extinguisher. And what would happen, of course, is it would also be sometimes the kitchen curtains are on fire and the kitchen cabinets. So a federal agency stepped in, Consumer Product Safety Commission, and said no more. You cannot sell a toaster in America that could have a 1 in 5 chance of burning down somebody's house. Done. That was it. No more toaster fires. By the early 2000s, mortgages in America were so complex and so dangerous that they had a 1 in 5 chance of costing a family their home. Not through fire, but through foreclosure. But either way, families out on the street. Only this time, the federal government was not on the side of the people. This time, the federal government was deep in the pockets of the big banks. So deep, they let them keep selling those mortgages until they crashed the economy. And that was 2008. So after that happened, I had an idea. And that was for an agency that would just watch out, put some basic safety rules in place on mortgages, credit cards, student loans, payday loans, and just like the other agency had for toasters. So I go down to Washington, and I talk to as many people as I can about the idea for this agency. And they told me two things. First, that is a great idea. You could actually make a difference. That would be structural change. You could do that. And second, don't even try. Don't even try, because you'll be up against the big banks, big money, all of the lobbyists, the Republicans will fight you. Shoot, even some of the Democrats are going to fight you on this. You will never get it done. I get it. Big structural change is hard. But it was the right thing to do. So we took on Wall Street, we took on the big money, and President Obama signed that agency into law in 2010. Yeah. And just in case you leave here and you're feeling nerdy about how you applauded for a federal agency, let me just remind everyone that little agency has already forced the big banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people they cheated. We do know how to make government work for the people. So what did I learn from this? I learned that even if the big banks don't like it, or big ag doesn't like it, or big pharma doesn't like it, even if the big dollar donors don't like it, we need big ideas to meet the big problems of our time. We need big ideas to inspire people to come out and caucus and to come out and vote. We need big ideas to be the lifeblood of our party, so everyone knows who and what Democrats will fight for. Yes. We need big ideas so we can take back the Senate and put Mitch McConnell out of a job. You bet. We need big ideas, but here's the thing. We also need to be willing to fight for them. You know, it's easy to give up on a big idea. And it's easy to make yourself sound so smart, so sophisticated when you do that. But when we give up on big ideas, we give up on the people those ideas would have touched. And those people are already in a fight. People struggling to pay their medical bills are already in a fight. People getting crushed by student loans are already in a fight. People getting stopped by the police or denied the right to vote because of the color of their skin are already in a fight, and those fights are our fights. We are in a crisis, and the media pundits, the Washington insiders, shoot, even people in our own party don't want to admit it. They think that running some vague campaign that nibbles around the edges is somehow safe. If the best we can promise is business as usual after Donald Trump, Democrats will lose. Yes. That's true. We win when we have solutions big enough to meet the problems in people's lives. Fear and complacency don't win elections. Hope and courage win elections. I'm not running a campaign shaped by consultants and put together with a bunch of ideas designed not to offend anyone. I gave up on that a long time ago. I am running a campaign based on a lifetime spent fighting for working families. I am running a campaign from the heart. because I believe that 2020 is our time in history, our time to win the fight for a Green New Deal and save our planet. Our time to win the fight for Medicare for all and save our people. Our time to win the fight for a 2-cent wealth tax and save an entire generation. 2020, it's our time to dream big, fight hard, and win.